This week we're going to be talking about the full life cycle of a cloud migration project from idea all the way up through planning, foundations, deployment, migration, and ongoing management. So, welcome. This is episode 9 of Frequently Asked Fridays, and let's get started.
Yeah, so talking about some of the pain points that folks are going to run into that are going to sort of push them towards the cloud. You're looking at aging hardware on premises, expensive data centers. Licensing is a big one. We see that especially recently of some of the kind of increasing cost of licensing for on-premises stuff, as well as just difficulty, I think, managing some of those on-premises systems compared to what the cloud can offer. So those are some of the kind of things that are going to push people towards the cloud.
Yeah, a recent one I spoke to a customer about is increase in the security because in some whether they're managing their data centers themselves or sometimes they've got third party, there are a lot more security features and options available in the cloud as well as additional capacity as well when you need it. So yeah, I guess that brings us on to some of the benefits. Adam, do you want to mention some of the benefits of moving to your infrastructure to the cloud?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, a big one is you just pay for what you use. It's not like you have to invest a load of money at once into new hardware or new space to put that hardware in. You get billed every month and you pay for exactly what you used. And as long as you've got it set up correctly, that can be quite low. It can be significantly lower than the cost of that hardware. Again, with that, it's very easy to scale up the services that you have or expand them or create new services if you need it. It's very quick and easy to do that. There's not that sort of long planning stage where you need to contact the vendors and purchase the hardware, get it installed.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Instead of a project taking a couple of months because of those kind of things, you can be up and running in a couple of weeks, couple of days even, if you're doing it the right way. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
a
I,
lot
th- I think
easier.
something there as well is the not only they need to scale up, but they need to scale back down again. If you're on premises, if you're buying hardware, you've paid for that hardware. There's no return in that. And so the cloud gives you that flexibility to grow, but also to kind of shrink back down if need be, and kind of save those costs.
Absolutely. And cost optimization is
Definitely.
a big one as well. And that's why some people are afraid to move to the cloud as well. Yeah, it's going to cost you more and because they've done the calculations and stuff. And to that, I always say, yes, it's going to cost you more if you do it wrong. So, what would be kind of the first steps, Connor? Let's start with you on some of the first steps of getting those foundations done.
Yeah, so the kind of first step to moving up there is kind of the step that a lot of people trip over. A lot of folks end up just, wanting to migrate immediately without setting up any sort of infrastructure in the first place and setting up those foundations in the cloud before you're moving stuff up. So this is, like getting your networking in place. This can be, VPNs, VNet, subnets, your routing, peering, all of these things to how all of your infrastructure is going to communicate with one another. Not to mention things like firewalls, obviously, for security. And then general governance for the cloud. So your policies, alerting, this stuff really should be in place to sort of give you the best possible journey with your migration is to have everything there, have those strong foundations in place before you even begin moving a VM or a database or whatever it is you have into the cloud.
Yeah, exactly, and that goes for any new environment. So even if you're not doing a migration and doing a new cloud setup, and you want to run cloud native services such as PaaS, web apps, whatever, you may not even have any on-prem infrastructure that you need to migrate. It's always best to get your core foundations right, so you've got the governance and guardrails in place. Yeah, excellent. So first job, get the foundations set up correctly. The next thing we would generally do if it is a migration project is look at an assessment. I know me and Adam have had a look at an assessment recently where we've had to install the assessment agents on servers on premises where we discover the workloads and kind of look at the data volumes, the databases, what kind of infrastructure is there on premises. And then what we do with that information is we generally let it run for like 30 days, 60 days, depends on the customer, and then we map out that migration plan so that we can start thinking about what is the timeline, what are the risks, what does the backup and recovery look like for existing workloads, and what is required in the target state. Look at the licensing options, look at the cost estimations, and just document everything, prioritize what are the dependencies, and what that might look like, which kind of then comes into like an assessment and a solution design for the target architecture, which Adam, you can pick up from there if you like.
Yeah, definitely. So I think it's really important once you've got that view of what you're going to be migrating, to think about well architected assessments and things like that with Microsoft as well. They've got a lot of questionnaires, Microsoft Learn articles, things like that that can help guide you, and help you to work out what's going to be best for your workloads, and how they can best be moved to the cloud. So whether that's refactoring, rehosting, rebuilding that service or application, if it's time to think about re-architecting it, making use of the sort of more modern tools and the more modern services that are available in the cloud, and really making that part of your migration as well, because obviously you're doing such a massive change when you're migrating these services and taking them out of on-premise into the cloud. It's a really good opportunity to sort of have a look at those services, make sure you still need all of them, make sure they're written in the best way or set up in the best way and things like that, and expanding that as well to what your backup plans might be, what disaster recovery plans can be in place, whether your application is able to cope with that, whether it's sort of redundant, whether it's able to actually recover from downtime in a timely manner and things like that. And if it's not, what tools are available within the platform, within the cloud, that can actually help to make your application more resilient, and just
Exactly.
using those tools and integrating them into your services, and really taking that time to sort of up level your solution as well while you do the migration.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Doing the assessment, even if you don't do the migration, an assessment can be a really good tool just to understand what you've got on in your environment, and then you can use that to look at what critical applications are running, and also you can go a step further, looking at who are the owners of those applications, who are the users. So when you come to migrating them, who's going to test it, what tests are they going to do, which we'll look at later. So that's great, thank you, Adam. Then next stage, Connor.
Yeah, so kind of after that, we're looking at deployment, and actually getting this sort of migration in place. And so understanding like how we want to go and deploy those resources. Adam obviously touched on the sort of refactoring and re-architecture and that stuff. And that is a big part of that. So, if you're someone that has, SQL databases, running on virtual machines, or websites still running on virtual machines, it's about, okay, what tools are there in the cloud? Modernize those. So is it, for example, moving your app to a web app service or a container? Is it about moving that SQL database you've still got sitting on a virtual machine to the sort of PaaS and SaaS solutions that exist natively within Azure to host those SQL databases that are much more sort of feature rich, a lot more secure, and just a lot
Less
better
overheads as well.
yeah, less overhead, cheaper, and just simpler to use in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is a huge part of that. But I know there are some tools obviously there that can help you with those specific workloads.
Depending on what you're migrating, there's lots of different tools out there, whether that's first party tools from Microsoft or third party tools from Microsoft partners and things like that. So some of the main ones we've worked with is Azure Migrate, which is built into the platform directly, and you basically get an assessment agent that you can install on-prem, on existing servers. You can connect that to your VMware environment or your Hyper-V environment, things like that, if you're virtualizing servers and things like that. You basically feed it a load of credentials, feed it a load of data about your environment, and then, like you were saying earlier, Mitesh, you can leave that for 30 days or so, and it will give you a really great report on sort of dependencies for your applications, what hardware or what virtual hardware they're sitting on at the minute. And then when you actually take that into Azure, in the Azure portal, it can make recommendations about VM SKUs or database SKUs, or if potentially you've got a SQL server running inside a VM, it can make recommendations about moving that to platform resources instead. Instead of just lifting that VM and migrating that across. So it can make a lot of recommendations, and it's a really intelligent tool. And then it can actually go all the way from doing that assessment to actually helping you migrate those VMs over. It can do that basically within a few clicks for you. So you can use the same tool that you do the assessment with to actually move those resources up to the cloud, and that's really helpful. I think
Yeah.
another good one we've looked at in the past is the data migration assistant as well. So that's more specifically for data sources like SQL servers or database servers. But it can make lots of recommendations about the database schemas and
See
sort
if
of
it's even
versions
compatible.
and things like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, see if they're compatible. See what the most appropriate SKUs would be again, and things like that. And
Yeah.
again, it's just a really great tool that makes a lot of really helpful, intuitive recommendations, and it lays it out in a really helpful way that's sort of really easy to understand. I think as well, there's a couple of third-party tools like we mentioned, from other Microsoft partners and things like that. Potentially tools that are more specialized to specific workloads or specific infrastructure. So
Yeah.
I know there's a couple of tools from VMware and people like that, NetApp and stuff like that for storage as well. They've got their own tools that can assess their infrastructure and help you move that across. So
I've
if you're trying to
used
stay within an
Cora.
ecosystem, it can be helpful to look at it that way as well.
We've got the workloads migrated, maybe got some stuff outside of VMs and running in PaaS or platform as a service environment. So we've got managed databases, managed websites. The next thing is to make sure we test and validate that migration as well. So there's lots of ways to do this. I've seen a good way of doing that is kind of using Azure DevOps as tickets as well, letting the customers have access. So you've got a good tracking of what actually being tested. So make sure you've got a good test plan, what the users are expecting, both in terms of performance as well. What, again, at the beginning, you'd be collecting what are your success criteria as well. So, we're getting this kind of performance of our website today to do this task is less than a second for example. And then once it's migrated, is it still that? So you'd have ideally you want a good solid list of tests you want to run against your applications and databases once they're moved as well. And then what you really want to do, which is what we kind of do, is get a proper documentation of that setup as well with sign off from the customer saying, yep, we're happy with these are the success criteria that we agreed to, and this is kind of we're happy with these tests. And if there's any issues, that's all logged in DevOps, for example, into a DevOps ticket, and then we can go and work on them and look into some of the options to resolve any issues. If it's infrastructure, it could be applications, it could be usually DNS, as we know. Everything comes back to that. But yeah, it could be anything. So just work through it. As long as the more detailed your test plan is, the more success you're actually going to have with after your migration. So let's assume that's all done. Great, all tested, working. Customers happy. Everything's migrated. Everything's running optimally. You're saving money. It's more secure. So where do we go now? Do we just walk away from there, or is there more to be done, Connor?
There's always more to be done, Nitesh, you know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we obviously do a lot of post-deployment documentation, and obviously we also provide our own managed service for clients that want that. They want us to take on their Azure environment and manage that for them. That sort of includes just making our kind of weekly checks, monthly checks, just to ensure the environment is kept up to date. Both virtual machines updating, policies kept up to date. Making sure we're checking out alerts. Anything there. As well as suggesting potential new ways to save money, whether that be like reservations, whether it be just keeping an eye on costs of perhaps databases or certain resources that are running but aren't being used.
Policy compliance
That's
as well, isn't there? Like policy
and a big
compliance,
part of
secure
compliance
scores,
there.
and those kind of things that we check.
Yes. So it's checking a lot of that stuff, sort of taking that workload off the client, and then providing monthly reports on all of that to ensure they're kept up to date and ensure the environment is kept up to date and as secure and compliant as it possibly can be.
Yep. One thing I've heard from our customers is that they also get the option, or not the option, they've also got us to ask questions to. So, they're unsure of something or they want to deploy a new service. Is this the right way to do it? Is this the right place to put it? And we're always there. We can then help them and assist them, making sure they're staying compliant with their own security requirements, etc., etc. So it's good for them. They find that useful for us to just be there as a backup for any questions that might come up. So that's really useful.
Yeah, it is super useful, and I think especially because of how much the cloud is evolving and how every month there are new features being released and new options out there. Having someone like us in place that can be the ones to stay up to date with all of that and take
Yeah.
that off of you and then be able to say, hey, this is new. Why don't we check this out? Or this is a new feature that's, maybe better suited to something you're using now.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is super, super helpful.
And we include that in our monthly reports. There's a section on like what's new with
Yeah,
Azure
we do.
infrastructure, and then we can discuss that with the customer. So hopefully that gives everyone a clearer idea for those that are thinking about migrating or using the cloud that have not got there yet. So thanks very much again, Adam and Connor, for helping with this episode. And anything else you guys got to add?
Yeah, so obviously make sure to, like and subscribe to this video. If there are any questions that folks have, please get in touch with us. If you're interested in a migration, please head to our website, lanet.co.uk, and you can book an appointment with us to, help discuss those first steps and kind of what you're looking for. We obviously, of course, we can help with all of that. But yeah, I think other than that, Adam, unless you have any last remarks to make.
Comments? Stuff, yeah.
I'd just say if you're booking a migration, pick your favourite from this video and ask for them in the comments.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Cool. Right. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thanks very much for watching. And we'll see you next time on episode 10.